And what all did you bring out today? You brought more than one car, I think, right?
We did. We brought our 1972 240Z. It's a Camel GT car that has all the original racing parts from the Bob Sharp Racing Company. Features all the Datsun competition parts. Before Nismo, it was Datsun Comp. Triple Makunis, 40 over, Comp 5-speed. It's won a lot of car shows.
That's right. All right, guys, welcome back to the Caffeine and Octane Podcast. We're filming this live at Caffeine and Octane. This is at Cobb Town Center, largest monthly car gathering in America. Today we're getting to know somebody, Mr. Vince Cory, who grew up around 240Zs, 25 years inside dealer service, and then built Gwinnett Performance around factory training, diagnosis, and trust. He's also been a part of the Caffeine and Octane community for about 12 years, and he's the official technician that both Bruce and Steve trust with their own vehicles. So Vince, welcome to the pod.
Hey, thanks a lot. It's great to be here today. This place is beautiful.
It really is. Yeah, we got great weather, great cars, even better people. And I got to ask you, do you remember your very first Caffeine and Octane moment?
Wow. Man, I wish I could say I did, because I have to remember so much, but it's been like 12 years.
Yeah.
I've been C&O about 12 years. And of course, Lanier was a lot of fun, and it's been a lot of adventure up here, because you see a lot of people again, and their cars are amazing. And then it's like today is Nissan Performance Day, which kind of fits the bill for me, because being Infiniti and Nissan Master Tech, I'm kind of into the scene.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's great to see like everybody coming out, and it's good times.
Yeah. And what all did you bring out today? You brought more than one car, I think, right?
We did. We brought our 1972 240Z. It's a Camel GT car that has all the original racing parts from the Bob Sharp Racing Company. Features all the Datsun competition parts. Before Nismo, it was Datsun Comp. Triple Makunis, 40 over, Comp 5-speed. It's won a lot of car shows.
That's right. And it won Best of Show, right?
A couple of them. Best of Show, Z1 Nationals, the International Z Convention. It won 6 times, Nissan Modified 240Z. Best of Show at C&O at Lanier, which is kind of cool. And that was a lot of great cars there.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was fun. And then Japanese Nostalgic Hero magazine and Speed Hunters, one of a kind. And, just a big honor, you realize your ideas on trying to, save a car that I found at the Georgia Z Club 22 years ago. The kids that inherited built with all the Bob Sharp racing stuff. Nissan had a 10-year dynasty of racing, from 70 to 80. I mean, they dominated, and when the Z went wide body in 75, Porsche was crying they needed wider tires. So Bob Sharp said that was the greatest thing that ever happened to a Z, was putting the big tires on there.
Yeah. And when slide it. That's amazing. And when did the relationship with Bruce and Steve become more personal?
It was actually by chance, because Steve was up for service on his Infiniti, and he kind of found me, Googled me,
is that right?
Infiniti, mechanic near me, you can do that. It works really good. And he lives in that Gwinnett vicinity, so he was over there and just started telling me about the scene. And I'd already attended several, but didn't have a personal relationship with the founders, if you will. And so it worked out really great. And they run the Nissan trucks as well as part of the fleet. So, we keep them rolling. That's what's up.
That's awesome. And then both your parents had 240Zs?
Actually, yeah. Back in the early 80s, late 70s, my mom had a 72 240 automatic, which was like the blue with white interior. My dad had a 73. And, we would always detail the cars Friday night before they would go hunting for their treasures out of the antiques on Saturday morning. And then if they find something, we'd grab the Ranchero and go pick up their finds. It was before Google, before the internet, all that. You have to go out, just go hunting. So it was a kind of a different world with that kind of stuff. And, reliable car. My dad he would always buy a car that was a deal, but the Datsuns were great. He had 2 GT6s, which the 72 was beautiful, but of course the other one was a parts car, British Leyland.
Yeah.
So, so we had the parts car there. So we were doing a lot of, fixing, tinkering, and it got me more inspired to want to fix things. I was a kid, like fixing bicycle chains and stuff, and then I see him pulling heads on a 240. I'm like, man, this is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Got me inspired.
Yeah. And then I want to talk a little bit about why Gwinnett Performance had to exist. I mean, you spent 25 years at dealerships. What changed enough to open up your own shop?
Yeah, I got to tell you, the whole car experience, even customers as well as the technicians, I was always with the private owners, like Trunk Holly for 8 to 10 years and Sutherland, you were an equitable part of that business and you really felt like a family environment, and it changed a lot because, dealership groups started kind of taking over that whole thing.
Corporate.
Yeah, well, it all changed, and then you didn't really feel like, you were a part of their structure, and then, chimes are cut and, the customers are not feeling it when the prices went up because, it's about profitability, and I get that.
Sure.
But it kind of inspired me to like hang my sign up. I was like, you know what, I understand this completely, and then I want to really help my friends and my new customers that I just discovered. I didn't take any customers with me when I started my shop. I literally just started from ground zero, and this is how it all grew. And 14 years later, I'm glad I did it because it's really great. Plus I could do my classic restorations, which I really enjoy that the most. It's tricky because during COVID, a lot of the collectors hoarded up all the parts.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So it made it really crazy to try to like save old Datsuns, which is like kind of my wheelhouse, but we're pretty good at it. So if it runs and drives, you're good, but if it needs it all over, it might be all over. Yeah. So we just have to decode it and see what's up.
Yeah. What did the dealer world teach you then that still matters today, perhaps?
Well, the biggest thing is just testing the cars thoroughly, road testing, all the basics. I was in Infinity for quite a while, and they did a survey every year, East Coast, West Coast. Mm-hmm. And what's interesting is they put every technician on a list of your customer service index. And I hit first place for like 37, 100% scores, so maybe that was a 98. I realized my ideas on fixing things were great, but I would always do the little things like make sure the radio is correct, no fingerprints, all the little stuff, make sure there's no shimmy shutter. I would tell my service writer, listen, just read the menu of my estimate exactly.
Yeah.
And every time they fix the car, and the other techs get a little uptight. They're like, you're feeding them, but the customers start requesting you. So I realized, this is the way to do things. Because you're kind of like your own business when you're in that flat rate environment.
Yeah.
And you have to be very organized, structured, and motivated. And I would say I outworked everyone, but I worked very hard to do a great job. And, when you see George Sutherland comes down in the middle of the showroom and he calls in the middle of the service department and calls, hey, Vince, everybody's like, oh, and it was to hand me a $100 gift certificate to Outback. For an attaboy letter, that's a great feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's good stuff.
Yeah. What surprised you most once you hung your name on the door of your shop?
Well, it takes time to start building it and growing it.
Yeah.
And at first we were doing all makes and models because, as I mentioned, I didn't take any customers with me.
That's diplomatic.
And I knew how to fix cars. I didn't have, you're at the dealer on the same mark. You're the best. But when you're out there on the new stuff and the internet's still kind of fresh, there's not a big YouTube, everybody's a YouTube master technician now, which is great. It gives you good ideas, but not always the answer. Even AI misses quite a bit.
It does.
I get customers that come in, hey, AI said this. I said, yep, you know what, that is a great, because they'll ask me a question, I'll start answering. The AI kind of said that, but not, like the first thing they think is the CVT needs a transmission, but actually it's a ruptured, intake air boot. But you have to do your maintenance. The key to it all is servicing your car on time. CVT transmissions are a great technology, but you have to do it every 45,000 the fluid, every 90 your second service with the external filter. You have to let that thing breathe, and you can run it as hard as you want. My original 2011 Maxima with a V6 in front of it went 225 on perfect maintenance, and other customers are all pushing like 200. I know it goes a long way with proper maintenance.
Yeah, so I think it's safe to say that experience matters more than a scan tool. Is that right?
Yeah, well, we kind of prove things, by just doing a great job, and then that helps build it, Yeah. You get the word of mouth. I don't really push a lot of advertising because we just have word of mouth, and we build a personal relationship. When I repair your car, we're very transparent. I send you an estimate, we fix your car, not me fix your car. So that gives you kind of a feeling of confidence. So when you pick your car up, you already know everything that went on. You have prices, you have the parts, you see what's broken. That helps a lot. That's what's so great about iPhone's been around like 13, 14 years, or 15, 16 maybe now, and I've been selling service on my iPhone for 14 years, which is really awesome.
Yeah.
That's the greatest tool ever if you're very transparent.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll be right back, but before we do, I want to take a second to talk about the official Caffeine and Octane merch. Look, this community is something special, and now you can wear it. We're talking hoodies, tees, hats, quality stuff that actually looks good, whether you're out at the show on a Sunday morning or just living your life. Head over to caffeineandoctane.com, check out the full lineup, and rep the brand. We'll be right back. So let's talk about the 3 Nissan eras and your perspective as a technician. Why build the Bob Sharp-inspired 240Z?
Well, I actually found it in the Georgia Z Club. It was already a built car. The kids who had the car had inherited it, and it was coming and going from the Georgia Z Club when it used to meet down on Jimmy Carter about 22 years ago, and I saw the car, and I was like, man, there's something special about it. And I couldn't quite figure it out until I found one of my dad's old Bob Sharp racing catalogs, because back in the day, you order out of a catalog.
That's right.
I flipped to the back page, and it was a red, white, and blue car with the little wings on the fender. I'm like, hey, I think we got something special here. And then the kids had the build book, which was really cool.
Nice.
It was originally he built the car to be a World of Wheels show car, and it actually won best interior, best engine, and then best of show, Jacksonville, like 1985. And when I opened the book, the first thing it said was Bob Sharp Racing Body, and I was like,
incredible.
Oh, okay, this is pretty cool.
That's a nice surprise.
It had the triple Makunis and had the header. I mean, it was already a car, just not refreshed.
Yeah. What had to remain period correct on it?
Well, basically, you don't change the body. The interior is basically stock, but has the Datsun comp steering wheel, things like this. So it was all Survivor with 52,000 original miles. I drove it to like 6 or 7 Z conventions, and I've put like probably 20,000 miles on it in the 20 years of ownership. It's about 75,000 now, but it's a great feeling that even the winning the Z1 Nationals, best of show in 2014.
That's serious.
Those are like the real big money cars, but they showed the old school some love. So
that's awesome. Yeah.
So shout out to Russell and them for showing some heritage. I love that.
Yeah. Was there anything that you deliberately refused to modernize on the car?
Well, I didn't want to change it at all. I wanted to kind of keep it authentic, but it did have the Hayachi racing wheels, but it kind of deserved the Watanabe type R's.
Oh, yeah.
So I did change that, and the center console was kind of a modified thing, but I went back to factory on the center console. That was about it.
Yeah.
And the original radio.
Yeah.
You got to keep it vintage.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the thing about a 240,
Yeah,
So it's full race Datsun comp, but vintage as well, which I really love that.
That's awesome. So across the 240Z, the 300ZX twin turbo, and Q45, when was Nissan, in your opinion, at its best?
Well, the thing about the Infinities, where they came out, they were hand-built cars from like 90 to 96. That's why Nissan got into money trouble, and they were developing the VQ platform, which they had like $1 billion or so in engine development. All these cars you see now with the V6, the VQ, the 2.0, the 2.5, 3.5, 4, it's all that same basic boundary of that V6. So they did massive engine development, and that really got them in money trouble in the 90s. But those hand-built, they were really good cars.
Yeah.
So that was like kind of interesting, to see like that whole, they were trying to go against the Mercedes in Europe. They want to go on the Autobahn. And I actually had attended launch school in Arizona at like the John Forest Tech Track now. It's like 2 mile oval.
Yeah.
And 4 guys were in a Q45 going 160 miles an hour, and I have a snapshot of the dash, and I'm sweating bullets like, man, this guy better know what he's doing, But that was pretty cool. Like when you go to launch, you see like some neat stuff. And then of course what's really interesting is when those cars had no VIN numbers, they do like the test cars or the take apart cars. At the end, when they went to go crush the car because they don't sell it, they couldn't crush it because it's like a NASCAR roll cage. They had to cut the roof off the car to crush it.
Oh, hilarious!
Which was really wild. Like you hear the story about that. It's like, okay, well, I saw one once that was rolled 7 times. It looked like Mike Tyson beat it up,
and that's it.
But the roof wasn't caved in. I was like, all right, I know why. So pretty neat.
Yeah. And then in your opinion, of every Nissan and Infiniti, let's say that's made today, which platform, I guess, you think is the most misunderstood?
Well, the VR30, the twin turbo setup, the configuration for the Red Sports as well, that's a great platform because, Japanese tuner cars, there's not a lot of that going on, and that's what's interesting. And, the economy stuff, obviously we need more sports cars. That's a huge thing. That kind of gets people more motivated. They had the 240SX, NX2000,
Yep.
all those really cool kind of retro type cars now. But they'd reinvent that, or even the G35, G37 platform. That was very reliable. Those cars were great.
Super popular when they launched too.
And they worked out great. I mean, some of them are kind of beat down. They get a bad reputation for, cutting the muffler off and, doing sideshows or whatever, because, that's the ones that are the throwaway cars. But there are a lot of beautiful Infinitis that are very well maintained, and people will not buy another car. They'll always keep that car, and we help maintain that. If we do a water pump, timing chain update, transmission services on time, rear diffs, rear diff urethane bushing upgrade to save the cradle, like all the basic stuff to keep it safe. That's the key. Do the Akibono factory brakes. 400 great models come from the factory with Akibono.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, and we're all Akibono at my shop because there's no drama, and you literally stop 100 feet short, compared to like other brake brands.
Yeah, some of the best brakes in the world. I mean, a McLaren P1 uses Akibono brakes.
Aki all the way. And what's interesting is it's I think it's Japanese technology, but the factory's in Kentucky, where they manufacture it, and they only do 48 rotors in a batch.
Yeah.
So sometimes if you go to a dealer, it's like a black hat rotor, not like the high carbon zinc coat, which is the one you want. Because if you go to a car dealer and look at all the cars, there's not a rusted rotor on the lot.
Yeah.
Because it's Akibono.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, 400 models. So that's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Which car is getting your personal attention right now?
Right now at my shop, we have several cars. We just finished a Z32 stock, little refresh on it. We have a couple of like flood problems because the sunroof drains need to be maintained.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Coming into the cabin.
Yeah. You have to maintenance it or replace the plugs. Or we modify the drain plug. So because it rained like crazy. When it rains and you haven't been servicing your car regular, then you're going to run into like I need an update, type thing. So, and if you have to replace a BCM, you're reprogramming it. That's really like a specialty shop or dealer type repair. So right now it's like rain cars and things like that, and quite a bit of maintenance. Obviously we're always updating maintenance on schedule. If you service your car 5, 10, 15, 5's oil, 10's oil rotate, 15's oil and filters. When you get to your checkpoint of like 45, 60, 75, for your tune-ups. At 150, you do your direct ignition, you do your spark plugs and your coils. You get long-term reliability. You're not buying a cat because you got a weak spark.
Yeah.
This is kind of the key to it all, is getting your maintenance right, finding a spot that you can rely on the people to do a great job for a fair price, and the experience. That dealership experience is very important.
Yeah.
So certifications and access to the factory server for reprogramming, that's huge.
Yeah.
You need that because modern cars are basically take it to the dealer, or you're just doing a parts cannon.
Yeah.
That's a no-go. No-go on the parts cannon. Whatever you do, if it's got to replace this and check it and do that, the other, it's not a diagnosis.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
That's a big mistake. That's throwing away money, and you don't have to.
Yeah.
Find your guy for your mark, whatever it is. That's huge. And I've seen a few other podcasts here. You have specialists.
Absolutely.
That's the key.
Yeah.
That's what you want to do. So we got the JDM stuff figured out really well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Is there anything in your personal collection that you haven't, purchased yet that you're still kind of eyeing?
Yeah. Well, I've been really blessed that, I was a kid who had a 240Z in high school, and a Chevy Nova with the 354 speed,
Nice.
and I had the old C10 pickup because my dad bought a second truck and my mom got really mad and we had to throw it away, because we had too many cars. But if I could find another Nova, it would be cool. But I'm just all import now, so I don't really need any cars. I kind of sort of am set. I'm happy with what I have, which are just like your typical cruisers. My 91 twin turbo, I've had it for like 8 years. Had the Camel GT coupe for like 22 years,
Nice.
Wife drives an 02 Xterra supercharged.
Oh yeah.
The 200,000, the transmission started slipping. It took me like a year to find a transmission, a rollover in Nebraska with 72,000.
Really?
Got so lucky. Found the transmission.
They don't exist?
It's a lot of it dried up. Supercharged. It's only a limited production.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
It's a different design. The electronics. And I got really lucky. Found the transmission, put it in. It's perfect. The wife got her SUV back. She's so happy, and happy wife, happy life.
That's right. So that's why you don't see those on the road that much anymore. Then probably.
Well, a lot of that stuff got exported. The islands love those early Nissans.
Is that right?
The V6 3.3. They had a free running motor. A 3.0 would bend the valves, but a 3.3 doesn't bend the valves.
Free, yeah.
Quest doesn't bend the valves. That's why you see like those old cars, like how's that thing still
and these
running?
guys figured that out, yeah.
Well, if it breaks, you just put a belt on it and keep driving, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that is.
Nissan over-engineered a lot of that stuff.
Non-interference, yeah.
But supercharged engines are a little bit different,
Yeah. I'm going to hit you with a little bit of rapid fire now. So, best Nissan or Infiniti engine ever?
Probably the RB class. RBs are the best. You can build the most power with them. They've got the great cranks in there, and you can overbuild it pretty easily. The hardest and difficult that I love the most is, of course, Z32s.
Yeah. That's what
they're
say.
a fight from start to finish, but if you get it right, man, you've got an awesome ride. So it's a lot of fun. You have to be inspired.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be really working for it.
Yeah. Most misunderstood Z generation.
Probably the Z31. They don't get much love,
Right.
But let me tell you something. Those are super reliable cars. The first gen, not so much, but the 87, 88, that was a great car. They last like crazy.
I saw a pair of those leaving Caffeine and Octane last month.
Okay, yeah.
They were in tandem.
They're very reliably mechanically. That 3.0 is good, but the fuel injection system can foul up with ethanol, so you've got to run premium no matter what.
Yeah.
And you want top tier rated.
And you said something about the injectors off camera, right?
Yeah, it makes a difference. They're hard to get. They're just dried up because you run cheap gas or you let the car sit too much. So you got to drive the car once a week. Drive your car.
Yeah.
Even if it's around the block, just keep the fuel moving through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Original or modified?
Both, because my son has a 71 totally stock with the updates because it's a Series 1. He updated the rear diff and his mustache bar and put a 5-speed in it, but it's like a vintage Z.
That's cool.
It's beautiful with SUs, so I'm kind of I'm not a huge modified fan, but I do kind of appreciate classic vintage vehicles and all marks that are just that original. Jags are amazing. It's just so many.
Yeah.
The Mercedes, the SL 500s. Those were great cars. That I really enjoyed those cars. They're beautiful. $100,000 Mercedes in '94. And that V8 5.0. It's like driving a Mustang. They're fun.
Oh, absolutely. Which modern car has become too complicated, in your opinion?
Well, a lot of the newer engine technology, variable compression, got Ward's best, first 2 years, and now they've got 450,000, up on like a possible recall. That's on the Nissan line. That's kind of serious matter because, a lot of great cars. Overall, it's a really nice car, but, Nissan has done a lot of experimental stuff, and they have Mercedes engines in some of the cars and things like that. So it does kind of complicate things for technicians.
Yeah.
You need a lot of specialty tools just to take like hoses off and things like that. You're not a Euro guy if you're a JDM guy, so it makes it tricky.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, Vince, thank you for help keeping the C&O community pumping. Even with the personal vehicles, you're an honor to the community with Nissan and Zs and Infiniti, and I just really appreciate you coming on the pod.
Yeah, we really appreciate you guys having us, and we're really happy to help support the community. 14 years in Lawrenceville, we're right by the Gwinnett Airport, and we have a great location in our service center, and and we really look forward to helping out. That's the biggest thing is we're very transparent, but we enjoy the opportunity to try to keep everybody riding right, and that's huge for us. So thank you guys.
Yeah, appreciate it.
The Caffeine and Octane Podcast is brought to you by Ride Lounge, with locations in Midtown Atlanta, Peachtree Corners, Milton, Marietta, and more locations coming soon. Ride Lounge is redefining the automotive club experience through premium vehicle storage, exclusive events, and an unmatched community for automotive enthusiasts.